Hello,
Yo.
hackers.
That's
Wait,
not how we start.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Connor's starting,
Rewind.
though. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Connor.
I'm starting as the new host for just this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 7th episode of College. As I try and think about anything that Adam normally says to introduce, and I think that is
Talk.
it. So,
Among the top
Pwn
5
Talk.
College related podcasts on the internet today.
That's true.
We
Maybe
actually
we'll
don't know
be
that for
top
certain.
one. One day we'll be top one.
We can only
day.
hope.
And we're hoping everything is working because I this week am in charge of hitting the go live button, so I'm pretty sure we're live. It says we're live. If we're not, I guess we're gonna need Adam D back in the host chair next episode. But all right, Jan, are you ready to say the thing that you already said?
I am.
Let's hear it.
Now?
I think so.
We go. Are you ready?
Hello,
hackers.
Amazing.
Awesome. All right, that's great.
All
I
right,
wanted
so I
to do
think
that for years, like 5 years now.
I think this episode, as is in the title, at least on the final release version of this podcast, if not also on Twitch and wherever else, is the September effect. Who here can tell me what the heck the September effect is, since, you know, I was born well after the September effect, I think, was actually a thing.
Oh my
Is
God,
anyone
why would
old
you
enough?
phrase it that way? Yeah, well, if you Google and look up or ask your favorite LLM the September effect, what you'll get is something not related to what we're talking about. Apparently, the stock market dips in September for some reason, and there's like tons of data written about this. So what we're here to talk about actually comes from the idea of the eternal September. So Jan, do you want to, since you taught a course on the history of computing, can you kind of tell us about what, like, the history of what is the eternal September?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, we have a computing history and culture course, which covers, among many other fascinating things, the rise of the early internet and its growth as to become what it is today, which is, you know, a parasite destroying society. In the early
I don't think
days,
that's what it is now, but without the internet, we wouldn't have College. So
yeah, that's exactly my point. No, so in the early days, the internet was open to just the researchers that were creating it, right? In the very, very early days, the first 4 nodes on the internet were commissioned basically by the predecessor to DARPA. And there was 3 universities and a company. Fuck, now I'm drawing a blank.
it's all right, right?
No, fuck. Anyways, well, we
I don't think
talk
that's the
about
name of the
why
company.
we're not sleeping due to the September effect of College, which is very unique. But anyways, I keep trying to say BAE, but it's not BAE. They're part of Raytheon. It starts with a B. It's an acronym with 3 letters. It's a mystery. We'll put it in the show
ChatGPT
notes.
does say that it was SRI.
One of the first 4. Well, maybe
Yeah,
SRI.
You got to think of the map, man.
Yeah. You're
SRI,
right. There was
UCSB,
SRI. Yeah. That was just
Utah, I think, and
UCLA.
at UCLA. Yeah, because that's how you got the. So the story I heard was the reason why you needed Utah is because there would have been pushback from Congress if it was just California places. And so they needed something that was close enough that they could still network it, but like far enough away into another state so that it could be a multi-state effort. And like the other Congress people wouldn't see this as like pork barrel spending just for California.
The more things change, man. But the company that implemented the imps, which were the early version of, you know, what became routers, basically, was B.
Oh my God, you're still on this? We settled that you were wrong and we moved on.
No. Sure, SRI might have been a node. Can you ask GPT while you have it up? I'm pulling it up.
Something starts.
What other companies were
we
involved?
stand
Just
around, we
ask
sit
it, so
around
we can
and
just
just
move
ask
on.
ChatGPT
we need a
things.
co-host of ChatGPT audio version. I think that's what we're missing.
Yeah, but this
BBN.
is that's why I have a job that.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on with our lives now. Yes, now part of Raytheon. All right, awesome. So, is this someone on the chat trying to save us from
They're trying
ourselves?
to understand what you're saying.
Okay, good, good.
They're so lost. What does this have to do with September, Jan?
Sorry, early days, the internet, super tiny, as a research project, right? And as it started growing, it became open to university students to collaborate, to talk, to and then
It really
as
came out of universities, right? That's what, like, from those
yeah,
4 nodes that you mentioned, like the
exactly.
original kind of ARPANET expanded out and was mostly at like universities.
Yes, and in fact, until the early 90s, you couldn't have there was no way for kind of non-academic, non-government institutions to be on the internet. So the internet gradually got transitioned into NSFNet, or ARPANET got transitioned to NSFNet, and then NSF at one point opened up this concept of, hey, now companies can be internet access providers. And then all hell broke loose. But until then, what would happen is every September you'd have this flurry of students that would start with freshmen that would start and get internet access for the first time, and would show up to all the online places, not know any of the norms, the social expectations of them, and just cause chaos. And we see this every once in a while. New users would come in and to Pwn College, and they say, hey, I need help with challenge whatever. And someone say, well, you got to ask an actual question so we can help you, not just like help me, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
then
not that they
they
don't necessarily know, right? It's like it's just they're learning how this community talks and acts. And so the internet had this same effect every September with the new school year starting.
exactly. And then and this happened for the first decade, 2 decades of the internet's existence, and then suddenly NSF opens up the internet, or in the evolution of the internet, it opens up to just everyone can go get AOL and is on the internet, right? And the eternal September is when the September effect of a flood of new users coming into your online communities stopped being yearly and started being constant. And so Pwn College has this really interesting dual situation where Pwn College is an open platform. New people can come in whenever and do. And we get people showing up in, March and saying, need help with level 3, right? Rather than, hey, I'm doing this on the. And then, in September, we also have the kind of extra hit September and January of ASU's introduction to cybersecurity course starting up. And that is, of course, the main consumer of Pwn College.
Actually, technically August. Our ASU semester started in
That's true.
August.
Yeah.
But just, it's September effect sounds better. And we're literally in September now. So I feel like this is.
And also, the first module is often due like right around early September, right? And so then
that's
no
bingo.
one actually looks at at Pwn College until they need to. So then they flood in, and there's chaos on the Discord temporarily as people come in and
Not just on the Discord. If there's just chaos on the Discord, I think that'd be one thing that people
right.
we could, kind of easily. There's a lot of mechanisms in Discord make people read things where they can post, yada yada yada. But there's another big September effect.
Yeah, and on us, and I wonder if this happened to the early internet, because I haven't read anything about, we have a new class of students starting, and as a result, everything went down because it was overloaded. But it could have. Pwn College has
I don't
this
know enough
problem.
about how, because this phrasing kind of came around with Usenet, and so I don't know the architecture of Usenet. Maybe it like cached locally, and so it didn't quite matter how many local users you had.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Don't know.
It's a distributed local, basically, message store.
So, Jan, what is it that happened this semester in September?
Yeah, so this semester, we had the usual flood of new students into Discord, and that has its own challenges we can talk about. And the other thing is we have a huge flood of students into Pwn College itself to start solving challenges. And what we do, especially over the summer when there isn't a large cohort of students working through Pwn College, is we do a lot of evolution of the platform. And Rob especially loves this. he's a big proponent of, if there's a sleeping dog, you wake it up and you teach it new tricks. Just new trick, new trick, new trick. And then all the students flood in and the dog is balancing on one leg, trying to shake someone's paw, and then everything just falls over. And that's exactly what happened on Tuesday. No, when did the semester start?
Thursday.
Yeah. So
Was it
Wednesday,
first day of class? So I guess
Yeah,
I'm the one who wasn't involved. So it was first day of class.
Thursday is the first day of class. We have this whole thing where we say, guys, this class is super hard. This is the hardest class that you will have ever taken in your life until now.
In 365?
Rob claims 365 is harder than 466.
It won't be, but it was.
Good, he's right.
He's fighting for that title.
Adam, do you think there's an earlier class in ASUCS curriculum that's harder than 365?
40 is pretty hard. Depends on what order they take things in.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I've very. Anyways,
when I was an undergrad at ASU, 355 was the hardest class.
Yes, I'd say 355 for sure.
I don't know if that's still true. Maybe they figured out how to be a little more chill, or I have no idea. But 355 for those not at ASU was like the theory of computation, like regular machines, stack machines, Turing machines, all that. It's basically like you're not programming, you're just doing math now.
Which is important to understand, but it is definitely like there's definitely a disjoint set. Like you can be very good at programming, but not be as comfortable with the theory, or your math background may not be as strong. And so you'll struggle in that class when you could like crush the other assignments. Also, things like 340 has like semester long projects that build on each other. Whereas 365 has the different modules that you could just completely fail crypto, but still do fine in the rest of them. Right. And so there's definitely there's differences, right? Of like a month long or a month and a half long programming assignment that is designed to take you that long. And then another month and a half one that builds on the previous one. That's a different level of, or different type of difficulty.
Yeah. At this point, though, Jan has been spreading propaganda for 2 years to tell students that 365 is the hardest class, and they need to know that 365 is the hardest class, and to tell everyone they know that 365 is the hardest class.
That's literally the intro lecture. I tell them there is no trifecta. That's for non-ASU students, the 3 courses that were considered the guardians of graduation, right? 340, 355, and something
and
else.
330. Yeah.
Which is OS, right?
OS, yep.
Yeah, and so what I tell people, there is no trifecta.
So wait, you're
anymore.
saying the trifecta is dead, even though you don't know what the trifecta is or what the courses involved are?
It doesn't matter because 365 is that hard. There is no trifecta. It's the one factor. It's 365. In fact, I had a meme this year. The new trifecta is 365, 365, and 365. And
but you know that implies that by doing 365, it makes those other courses easier. Do you know that that's true?
I'm sure it is, because they know the people that come out the other end of 365, they're trained to a spear tip. They're doing automata theory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
they know everything about Turing machines at the end.
I'm sure then they'll think, well, this is not padding Oracle attacks.
We should make them exploit a Turing machine. How cool would that be?
That would be
just
cool.
give me some more tape, brother.
The Jan 85 idea. Like your VM idea that led to that insanity.
Yeah. Anyways, so 365 is difficult. You told all the students this at the beginning of the semester.
The point is, a shocking amount of students listen, and probably because it's been 2 years of this constant propaganda of no, you should really, really start panicking right now, first day of class, and everyone immediately floods in. And also, on the first day of class, we assign a module that has 140 challenges or something, right? And this is the easiest module in the entire course. These are 140 simple Linux challenges, do LS,
which is also pretty non-standard, right? I think this quote standard thing to do is you go over the syllabus the first week or first day of class, and then the next week maybe you assign homework.
Yeah, and we said, guess what? This is due right at the next class,
which is good. I'm not saying it's not a judgment call on my behalf.
Yeah,
trying to contextualize.
So people took it seriously. 800 students, some large subset of that, slam into the dojo immediately, and suddenly we notice that all of these awesome new features that we added to make Rob happy have runtime overhead.
So you're saying your dancing one-legged dog bouncing a ball on its head couldn't actually just keep up with the normal thing of starting challenges? And
yeah, because of course we test all this stuff. We watch to the extent that we had the visibility. We watched the performance. We did all of this stuff, and but there's all of these crazy failure modes. That and the dojo is a complex beast. For example, one thing that happens is when you do a challenge, we snapshot your home directory so that if something goes terribly wrong, there's recovery options, right? There's a lot of cool things that we can do with the snapshotting of the home directory. We can sync it across nodes to enable like the TAs dropping in and helping directly, this sort of stuff. And we would snapshot it every single time you start a challenge. The problem is that this works just fine when there is, however many people we have running, however many challenges we have, and typically the harder challenges are not as quickly through the material. But when 800 people hit your platform at the same time, start doing challenges that are literally ls, cat/flag, this sort of stuff, just to learn Linux, right? These are intended, short, very rapid challenges. Every time they launch a challenge, all 800 of them, a snapshot is taken of their home directory, which overwhelms Btrfs, which is what we were using in Linux. And it's not Dojo code. It's like a Btrfs kernel driver code, and it starts just shitting itself. It's insane. And so then Btrfs snapshots.
Real quick, I think we have some disagreement, maybe.
Well,
what's the root cause is?
Robert, did you have some disagreement?
Well, like that may have been what happened, right? And I wasn't the one that delved into it, so I can't say for sure. But maybe having challenges where we are like removing everything from the file system, and may have been a factor. Not just people starting challenges.
Word.
Like I recall a year ago when we had Btrfs and we had a fairly large student population, and things didn't explode. And for Chad asking why the Rob hate, I value stability a bit more than new features. And
that's why
so
you don't shave your beard.
It's stable. It's consistent. Yeah.
Stable beard. You never know what happens. What if you shave it and it doesn't grow back?
Okay.
This is a good point. But before you defend yourself, maybe go back and be like, okay, I call this the September effect, but is this the only September we've had this problem?
There's always novel problems, right? Like the problem is that so we listen to Robert a lot, right? Robwaz says, hey, maybe we should stay stable. We listen to him a lot. Let's say we listen to him 63% of the time. But that's a lot. That's much more than zero. But that leaves, 37% where we just, kick the rock and hope that our toe doesn't break. As someone says on the studio chat, pwn.college is so slow right now, and probably it's the other thing is
so we should stop this and go fix pwn.college.
Whenever someone says there's problems with pwn.college, I just instantly have to test it. I just tested it; it's just fine. So just to report back on that.
Get into AZ, and then everything will be fine.
Connor was at the altar refreshing pwn.college.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
this has happened in the past, right?
Yeah, and it's always something unique. So, for example, at the beginning of last fall, the last September, I think we got fucked by a number of things. One was that an extra class at ASU was using pwn.college, which is great, but they were doing very hands-on heavy stuff. They're doing in-class exercises and it was a lot more. There was a lot more instrumentation into what the student was doing. They were earlier stage students, and the challenges were much more hand-holding and assistive. and which had some CPU costs the way it was doing it. And last fall, we hit the limits of our single 40-core server that was running the world's pwn.college, and had to upgrade very rapidly from that.
Wasn't that
Is
2
this
years
accurate?
ago? This feels.
Was it 2 years? No, it was,
And
I
then
think,
Didn't we do
before that,
mix after multi-node?
yeah, because I think the other thing that we didn't talk about is, so there's the
No.
start of the semester, but I don't think we crashed a lot at the start of the semester. It was more like the first deadline. But whatever the largest
Yeah.
class had its first deadline, we would see massive slowdowns, and students would, of course, we tell them don't wait till the last minute, but at the same time, it sucks that the website's going down, and that's why they can't like solve their assignment right now. And
Yeah,
so,
and
those
that's
would
been
be. I remember
interesting this time.
database. Yeah, I remember database issues that we, had that we had to fix, and move the database to a physical server at one point, and tried a bunch of stuff to help scale. So yeah, so I think
Yeah.
these are not unique things, but that's kind of why I think this is an interesting topic, is to talking about the whys. And like, I think the key question is, why does it keep happening, right? That's kind of like a deeper philosophical question. And I think it gets into what Jan was talking about you do the new crazy features, especially during the summer, because we do deploy to prod almost all the time.
So this semester we kind of got unlucky. I think we've been stable for over a year. The last major hiccups were when our home directories were over NFS. That was a disaster for performance. Once we switched to
That's
ButterFS,
right.
it was good.
No, because there were specific classes, right, that were using that they had the workspace
NFS.
thing that was like accessing it all the time. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, their VS Code was doing C++ stuff of constantly compiling the code over NFS, and it just melted everything. Since we switched to ButterFS, it's been stable. We added this snapshotting feature, and it's actually been totally fine. The issue that we ran into this semester is that NFS or that ButterFS is not meant to have millions of snapshots. And so we've actually just been slowly accumulating all of these snapshots. And that ultimately has just killed the performance of it. So the answer was to just disable snapshotting until we figured it out. Probably we'll delete all the snapshots. We hit that. What Robert was saying is also true. We hit a different thing where at least one of our nodes, the Docker overlay FS, was going on top of ButterFS. And ButterFS over overlay FS combined with all the home mounts being on the same ButterFS melted everything. So we hit that issue. We decided suddenly this semester to do an import of all of Linux Luminarium into a single module within 365, where we had 150 challenges all loading on the same page. And this had a bunch of database, like we were doing database queries per challenge on that page load, which melted that page that everyone was hitting. So we hit a bunch of things all at once, and insanity ensued for over a week.
The
Yeah.
interesting
So
thing
each
with these things is,
individually, sorry, I was just going to say, each individually, well, A, you're making these changes and you wouldn't think like there's going to be massive performance problems, A. And B, you're doing these changes, and if one of them had just happened, it would have been very easy. You fix it and move on. But here you have, and I think particularly interesting that maybe they don't realize, people don't realize, when you say like one of the nodes had this problem, like that is some of the hardest problems to fix, because it's an intermittent error that only affects some users. And so when, like you're saying, like I went to the website, I refreshed it, it seems fine. Like I started a container, I SSH'd in, I used the whatever, like it seems fine to me. And so I think that's another interesting thing. Like as we've evolved to handle scale, more problems come up in handling that scale that you had to do.
Exactly.
and each individual thing, like you said, like we might not realize it as performance impact. It might not be super noticeable either. Some of this we do to ourselves. There's a little bit of a buffer bloat situation here, in that we do a lot of caching, and so as long as the caching, the queries keep up with the expiration time of the cache, things might work. And the moment they become 1 millisecond slower, pwn.college just goes away.
Just
Because
avalanches, yeah.
if things are slow enough, web workers get taken up doing queries, and then once we run out of web workers, now we're hard down. and this can be really problematic. So there's a lot of the problems this semester were all survivable individually, but in aggregate, we got screwed.
But then walk us through. So what was it like trying to fix? Because we talked about, I think the connection to the previous episode is we talked about all the crazy problems with DEF CON Academy and having to stand up the offline dojo and downloading 17 terabytes of data. So was it easier to fix it? Because you were, not at Vegas and not on this crappy network. Was it easier? Maybe you want to talk about that.
No, it was definitely not easier. So DEF
Why?
CON
But tell the
was
people why. They want to know
yeah,
why.
exactly. So DEF CON was easy in a certain sense because deploying a local instance to DEF CON was roughly equivalent to just spinning up like a dev instance when I like try to test a new feature, because we were going to have something like 30, 40 concurrent users. Once you can just be on a single node, it's very easy. Once you have to go multi-node, you hit all of these intermittent issues. The other issue, though, is the beginning of the semester. Suddenly, there's at least 750 students in just our class. We've slowly convinced other classes to join, and then also in addition 150 Robert students in 466, something like that
On
Maybe
day
at the
one,
start.
on
yes,
day
there's
one.
132.
We've convinced 240 to move to Post-College. We've convinced a few online classes to move to Post-College. So suddenly when Post-College is melting down, it's affecting like, I don't know, like a quarter of CS, maybe that's too generous, 20% of CS at ASU, which is just like the stakes are even higher. So putting out fires for other classes and for your own class you're trying to run. And there's just a bunch of global users using everything. So I think the fact that the stakes are just way higher and assignments need to be working. Various instructors are now using Post-College directly in their class during a synchronous window, like doing tests on Post-College, which means that if I want to quickly restart a node at 11 a.m. because things are melting, it's like I got to check to see if someone's currently using Post-College to run tests right now, and that would be really, really bad. And it just, the stakes are higher. There's more people using it. There's just not room for stuff to be failing. And at least emotionally, feels way harder.
Emotions. What about you, Jan?
So I think things get, so for example, at DEF CON, we brought a local, or well, we ended up needing to set up a local version of Post-College because the internet wasn't good enough, etc. And this was kind of chaos, but at the same time, people were chilling. There were talks going on. Everyone is used to DEF CON being like an insanity event. Like, there's internet issues, and like, ha ha ha, there's internet issues. I think the stress of the semester started. We have tight deadlines, especially at the beginning of the semester, because there's a lot of, especially in 365, there's a lot of, hey, these are table stakes. You should, by the junior year of your undergrad experience, should be able to know or pick up Linux fast. But because historically this has been a very serious limitation in student success in the class, we're going to, actually make you learn Linux in the first week. But we can't spend too long on this. Right? So we have these like Linux, Python, SQL, and HTTP like background modules that we need to get through in like a week and a half. Otherwise, the rest of the class gets fucked. And if the timing is already so tight, and then Post-College is down for, significant chunks of time, that gets very, 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 very stressful. There's a different, and then students are paying tuition. It's one thing if you're over there, volunteering to run DEF CON Academy, but students are paying tuition for this stuff, and they should have a reasonable sort of experience, right?
Yeah, I think just to add one more thing, I think we joke about how hard 365 is, but like there's a reason it's hard, and part of that, like a major reason it's so hard, is because we want to teach a lot of things. And so like at least personally, when I get complaints that, this class is hard, like I almost hear that as a compliment. Like good. Like that means you're learning lots. Like at least in general, there's edges around where that's not so true. Um, but if we're gonna make students like struggle through this stuff and really have to work hard, it feels really bad when the pain isn't the learning, that the pain is instead the platform itself. Like that just it feels so bad. Like that's why I think a lot of us were like staying up till 3, 4 in the morning while the platform is struggling to like this needs to stop because students are miserable and they're miserable for the wrong reason.
And it's funny to me because one of the benefits and the reason why I always liked using pwn.college in the classes, and similar thing when I would run my own infrastructure for submissions or whatever, it's like if there's a problem, I want to be able to go in and fix it because I want it to be fixed at, like, there will always be problems. But if I'm using some third-party site, I can't control when they're going to get back on. I highly doubt they're going to work nights to make sure that this stuff works. Like, but I could go into the system, figure it out, try rebooting, try whatever I needed to do to try to get us back on track, change code, whatever it was. But yeah, it's kind of funny that we're now the third party to other people. And so like, they're just like, my website, my class website doesn't work. God damn it. And like, they can't fix it themselves. They just have to like tell us it's broken.
The other big stressful thing is like, it's especially the production deployment of pwn.college is extremely complicated. I mean, it's not the most complicated thing out there, but it is big and has a lot of moving parts. And the cache shading itself is just one part of that. It's all this multiple nodes. There's really complex things. Some operations are synchronous, some are asynchronous, some are in a bunch of different components across like different levels of isolation. We got VMs running, we have containers, we have the nodes, we have like direct communication between Dockers. How it's insane, and it makes it very difficult to understand what's going on a lot of the time. So things are melting down, and like the students will show up and say it doesn't work, but this is a very vague statement. It doesn't work can mean anything from I ran my exploit and it didn't hit to the site doesn't exist anymore, right? And even understanding what do they mean from our logs was just our internal visibility wasn't there at the beginning of the semester. During DEF CON Academy,
So
randomly, oh, God.
I was going to say, so you said at the beginning of the semester, so that was kind of the next transition I was going to look forward to, is like, so part of like engineering culture is like, right, you have an outage, you have something that happens, you do kind of a post-mortem, you try to figure out root causes, not to point fingers and be like, well, Jan doesn't know how to write code, or Jan is letting Claude submit too much garbage, and so that's what's causing all these slow queries. The point is actually not to do that, but it's to find out like what the actual root causes are, so that way you can build engineering processes in so that they don't happen again, or that you could detect them before you deploy or something like that. So, and I know, it should be apparent to anyone listening to this, this is not a professional outfit per se. We are doing our best with this open source stuff and running this website. And so so I don't think we've done a actual legit post-mortem, but what are the types of things that you're taking and learning from these experience, like going forward, that are either your thought process of how you approach things, your philosophy on developing things, or like new features or new things to help fix this visibility problem?
So maybe we can all take turns on our lessons learned. Connor, do you want to?
I just learned that Rob is always right.
Yeah, I think Rob can give the or Rob, do you want to go first?
I felt that I learned the things a while ago, which is why I say them.
So I mentioned we had very little visibility when this thing started. Like when things started melting down, we could.
And can you talk about what, for folks at home, when you say little visibility, like, I know you could SSH into any of like the main system and then SSH into the 3 like worker nodes, but what are you talking about when you say like visibility?
Yeah, the question, the ability to answer questions with data, questions like, why does this user say that it doesn't work? Right. the ability to, given user Zardus, say, okay, well, Zardus reported seeing an error when he tried to load the terminal workspace. So let's understand the chain of requests in the system that led to this error. Because pwn.college is so heavily distributed across all these, the friggin' reverse proxy, the this, the that, the Docker thing, the Docker plugin that handles home directories for users, all of this stuff. And we had no way to correlate all of these logs. And so we could look at an individual component and we could say, well, that's weird. We're seeing that this random request slash home slash mount took this much time, but we have no idea what user, we have no idea which request, we had no idea of this historical context around that log entry. To solve this, I learned why, again, relearned, because we had done the same thing when hosting DEF CON CTF on the advice of much smarter team members. But I relearned why Splunk was a $28 billion company. So I had happened to set up Splunk in the dojo as an early exercise in vibe coding. And as things kept melting down, I'm not crediting pwn.college staying up, getting back up with this. This just helped us understand what was going on. Basically spent a couple of sleepless nights pushing extra logging and extra log correlation. So for example, Nginx, or proxy guy, assigns a request ID to every request. But I implemented stuff to pass that on to the web application layer, which is CTFD, with our custom code on top of it, so that every log entry had that request ID and the username or the user ID and all of this helpful other data, the challenge that's attempted to be launched and all of this stuff. And then I passed that along in as many places as I could and got all of those places logging to Splunk, which has nothing to do with hacking. It's all, site reliability engineering in some sense. And now when users would say, oh, it doesn't work, I could run a Splunk query and it says, these are the requests that failed. And then I could zoom out. I said, well, let's see what users were impacted. Then I could make inferences like, this node has problems because all of the users that are having problems, that have slow challenge start times, are assigned to this node. Rather than we, had to look around and try to figure out. So we had, one node out of all of our nodes that was running with it had Docker that was backed by Btrfs, a separate instance of Btrfs than what had been backing the home directories. But Docker can use Btrfs instead of overlay as its scratch space. And Rob mentioned that we have a challenge that requires. I added basically 2 months ago a couple of challenges in the Linux Luminarium that require learners to destroy their Linux environment in various ways. So there's a challenge that forces you to rm-rf/. There's a challenge that forces you to fork bomb, a challenge that forces you to fill the disk. Lots of cool stuff. And it turns out that the Btrfs backing layer for Docker is extremely inperformant, maybe with how you're using it, if you go and wipe your entire file system. And for some people, that would take
Well, it's
hours.
not an operation that I think you'd want to necessarily optimize. Maybe
True.
deleting large
I mean,
directories, but the entire file system.
You have a point there. You're probably absolutely correct. But the bottom line is, all of a third of our students were impacted on this challenge with extremely long run times that would in turn slow down the rest of the node because they're doing all these file IO. And the reason that we were able to, at that point, to quickly narrow it down to that node has something weird about it, is we were able to very quickly run a query, see the users impacted, and just have a report that this node's having problems. And then we took the node down, took it off Btrfs, brought it back up. So this sort of stuff. But again, as I mentioned, this September has been the death of 1,000 cuts, and every cut it helps to have this sort of data. I think, Connor, maybe you have some
And it's
insights.
kind of, you know, the other thing, sorry, before we get to Connor, that you made me think of, almost a similar thing of adding tests, right? You have tests, we added tests, and so the site stops breaking in some ways, but then the ways that it breaks in are the ways that you either can't test for or it's hard to test for. So probably what will happen is the next incident, you didn't have something logged that you wanted to because you logged all the stuff you needed for the past incidents. And so like there'll be this case where you're like, no, I need this value to understand like the root cause of what's going on. But over time you build those up and you add those. So I think that's something interesting also to think about. But Connor, why don't you share your
Yeah, I
thoughts?
think that's exactly right. So Jan said that this helped with all of these little cuts. I don't think that's exactly true. I think it helps with a lot of cuts, but it doesn't help with all cuts. So for example, I don't know how much our new logging helped with understanding that Btrfs snapshots in particular were melting down. Um, of course, you could imagine instrumenting logging that would, have the snapshot operation, how long the snapshot operation itself took, and you happen to have logged that. But either way, I think it's like Adam also said with the tests. Like you can have tests that cover 5% of your code base, and now you've got a good handle on that 5%. But that it doesn't say anything about the PR. That's now how it impacts that other 95% of your code base. So this is something you just have to keep building up and improving, so that hopefully it helps in the future as another tool in the tool belt. I guess if I understood anything from this outage, besides that there is something to be said about logging and putting in the upfront cost to that. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of the fire, so like the upfront cost is hard to build in.
This is the
Like
thing,
John was
because
just convinced that it was worth doing even as everything was melting. For me, I just had like I had VS Code open with like 70 different introspection commands for me to run with like Docker logs into awk, into grep, like so I could grep out my IP address to just track my requests I was making, to JQ it so that I could like view it nicely, and insane performance things.
You're saying you use these Linux commands that we teach?
Exactly. So that's what I learned, is that like, we're teaching cybersecurity on pwn.college, and we're teaching awk and grep, and we're teaching, GDB and how to measure a side channel. Like these things are also just so applicable in software engineering. Like understanding how to debug something on your feet, how to like formulate a question and then convert that question into a series of Linux commands to answer that question, like was absolutely critical for being able to navigate this outage. It's all of these skills are not just cybersecurity. It's not just for finding an O day in some software. It's also for being able to like understand how a system works and why it's failing, like it's having performance issues, and how to then try to iterate on improving those performance issues.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, and there is a high overlap between the world of I mean, a surprisingly high overlap to me between the world of hacking and software optimization. I think both things are similar. In hacking, you're trying to find the vulnerability, and then you have this aha moment. And then when you find the vulnerability, have the aha moment, then you can start working on exploiting the vulnerability or fixing or whatever. You in optimization, you're searching for the bottleneck, you're searching for that the slowdown, the whatever, and then you have this aha moment, and then you fix it. Some of the top hackers I know, that win DEF CON, et cetera, I was shocked to find aren't cybersecurity people in their day jobs, right? It's like, yeah, one person I talked to, I do database optimization. Wow, we should probably actually, now that I think about it, reach out, help us. And then like Halverflake, famous hacker, kind of titan in the community, and in terms of professionally, went to found a very successful optimization company. which is also very interesting. Yeah, so in some sense, I think both things have a similar mix of tooling that you can use, a fuzzer, static analysis engine, a decompiler, et cetera, paired with the requisite intuition and kind of experience-driven intuition, but also just raw intuition to take that tooling and push it to success, right? And I think that was very evident in this in this September effect as well. Yeah,
Robert, did
I
you have any thoughts about the outage or anything related to the beginning of the semester?
I stayed away from that. I let you guys handle it, and just focused on the class. The Discord, like the September effect exists beyond dev, right? We have the pattern of the semester starts and everything catches fire, but it also manifests in the Discord and with the students. Like when you say, "Hey, there is a problem," how do you describe that problem? We have this. I'm going to call it the eternal noob problem on College, right? And it's very hard for people who have been members of our community to remember what it was like to be a noob. But every day there's new people joining that have never seen a Linux terminal, and we have to adjust to that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting learning how to best address that, because it is such a every September to, August, whatever, we have, at least in the case of 365, something like 700 students show up that have, many of them have maybe typed cat hello.txt before, but not much beyond that. And also, yeah, there's something more about, like, one of the things you learn in this class and a lot of College is learning how to ask questions. And that applies not only in, like, learning how to ask a question to, like, GDB or something like that to be able to formulate your question, translate it, get it answered by the tool, but also when you're in the Discord and asking people for help, you, like, learning that, please help level 7 is not going to get a very good response compared to, I tried this, there was this issue, I don't understand why this happened, I would have thought this happened, can someone explain what's going on? When, I guess it's hard to shortcut that. This is the unfortunate part, right? It's hard to just, like, create the how to ask a question module. Like, if we could think about how to formulate that module, we would do it. But I think it's just such an experiential thing that you just learn with time. I will say,
I
though,
think
we have
it's
one hack this semester that I think is really awesome that Jan added in the midst of all of this melting down. And the ASU channel specifically is the error dash screenshots. I think screenshots being in the name of the channel meant please provide context, and a screenshot is literally better than whatever the heck you're about to say.
yeah, that was good. That really helped us because everyone say the workspace doesn't work. Like, what does that mean?
Exactly.
But this makes sense also if you think about who are these people, right? These people are not senior software developers who know how to write a good bug report. They probably haven't even had their first job. They're still learning. And like that process of actually writing a good bug report is a skill that you need to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing, it's not even that, oh, they haven't had it yet. Nothing in our curriculum teaches that.
I think
And in
nothing in
fact, not
anybody's curriculum, man. You have to like
exactly.
lay off a little
Yeah.
bit. It's like
Yes.
you say
Sorry.
I think you should be clear. You're talking about computer science generally.
Most of the time when I say our curriculum, I mean computer science in America. Other countries do have different focuses in their CS curriculum, but in general, like in the US, you can get all the way through without knowing Linux, right? Without, like, for example, I don't know if MIT's still, what's it, the hidden semester, lost semester, the missing semester of computer
Stuff you
science.
should have known or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a required course, right?
I
Like,
think it's an elective.
yeah, exactly. And maybe you'll have an elective that teaches you probably some of the most important things that you need to learn. But this thing that writing a good bug report, contributing to a real existing project in any functional way. We've talked about this a bit, but in undergrad, I had I think it was called software development and documentation course that was satisfied a writing requirement at the university. It was a computer science course. So it was a writing heavy
Seems
computer
like
science
a
course.
cheap fake course, like a hack.
It was pretty cool, but it still didn't actually achieve what it should have in terms of writing, a good bug report, being able to communicate in a project,
Because
this
writing a
sort of
good
stuff.
bug report is technical as much as it is communication and writing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that I think we're trending in a really interesting direction. Like, I feel a lot more confident. There have been a couple of issues that I have been able to throw into Splunk, write a couple of queries and say, this is a problem. Right now, I know that one of our remaining kind of ticking time bombs is our challenge solve endpoint. For some reason, it is extremely slow. It is like by far probably one of the more likely things to cause our next pile up where things get slow
Just start
enough.
returning random results.
Yeah, success. You're free. You can move on. Yeah, but it's it is interesting. At the very least, you can kind of sleep a little better. Not like, is there something going wrong right now? Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Connor, you want to close this out? I think we seem to have reached a stopping point.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you everyone for joining for episode 7 about the September effect. I realized during this conversation that I think one of our goals in pwn.college is when we get the eternal September effect, when there is no thought of the September effect. It's just ASU is just so dwarfed by constant people joining. Endless September effect. I think that's our goal. So
It's actually,
anyways,
that's an
thank you. Yeah.
interesting thought
Yeah.
exercise. Like, is that even possible? Because, if more and more people use this for courses, like courses naturally align. So as you get more
Yeah.
universities using it, you'll have the semester quarter spikes. But but to see if you can have an amount of active users to where that is a blip is fascinating to think about.
Yeah, that's the day I'm looking forward to. I think we're close, a few years out. Eternal September is here.
How about that? How about this? When we do that, we can make another podcast.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Jan, are you gonna? I think there's a magic phrase at the end, maybe.
Yeah. Should I say it?
I think
All
so.
right. All right. Goodbye, hackers. Out of your psyche, yeah.
Even better. I know.